Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast on movie reviews. This is Cinemacast. You're watching this on our YouTube channel and also on TikTok and on Twitch if you follow us on either of those. Links are all down below if you want to check us out on any of the platforms, including our social media and our Discord server. So, today, this one. I really don't know how to put it because this one I actually seen twice and I kind of mixed with it. It's part of a trilogy of films that people seem to like. People do seem to like this, and they do seem to have a pretty decent following. They got a pretty decent rating on it. This one, X, though. I'll look at the critical response to this movie. Yeah, it's at 73% on Rotten Tomatoes and such. So it seems like each no, hold on. I was reading the wrong one. I am sorry. So this one has a 94% rating on it. So this one is probably more superior than the other two films in the series. Now, this is a very interesting film to talk about, because there are three of them. Mind you, there are three movies. There's X, there's Pearl, and there's Maxine. Now, Pearl, that one also in the 90s has got a 92 rating on Rotten Tomatoes. And this is the X film series. And let me tell you, all three films stars British actress Mia Goth. Now, she is a nice young lady, a nice looking young lady. And if you don't know who she is, and I'm looking at it right now, she made her acting debut in the erotic art film Nymphomaniac. And Nymphomaniac, I believe, was like a 2-part or 2-volume film that pretty much acts like a soft porn. It's an erotic art film, but you could probably look at it as like a soft porno or a hardcore porno, because there's a lot of sex going on in that movie. That one stars Shia LaBeouf, Christian Slater, Uma Thurman's in it, Willem Dafoe, Mia Goth is in it, of course, and just so many other people. But that's for another entry if I even decide to watch those movies. But yeah, so she was in quite a few movies, including The Survivalist, High Life, the remake of Suspiria, and a movie called Emma, which is a romantic comedy film. I have not watched that. But her career breakout role is in these movies as Maxine Minx and Pearl in these films. And they want to say she's established herself as a scream queen in these movies. And it's just very intriguing and very interesting when it comes to this movie. Now, if this is something that you personally have not seen yet and you're interested in watching it, let me tell you something. If you are not squeamish when it comes to a lot of nudity and sexual nature in a film, especially a horror film, if you're not squeamish to it, then you'll enjoy this one. Because trust me, I know a lot of people that are kind of squeamish at that thing, and they're like, I don't want to see too much sex in a horror film. Well, it happens. Just about every horror film, I want to say about 80 to 90% of horror movies that have come out since, well, let's say since the 1950s or 60s, do have sexual nature, sexual content in them. And whether it just involves, any kind of sexual innuendo or any kind of nudity at all, when it comes to horror movies. But there is a lot of it in this one. And this is an American slasher film. Now, what I want to do, I'm not going to do a separate review on the other two films because I've seen both of them once, and I don't have enough clarity to even go through Pearl and Maxine because I did not care for those. Now, if you are kind of artsy into these kind of films and you want to piece them together, they may be more for you than it was for me. But I think X lies in the center of the attention. And actually, it is the center of attention because I will spoil this for you guys right now when you go into this. Because, like I said, there's 3 films in this trilogy, and they all line up as X, Pearl, and Maxine. But X is the center of attention because Pearl, the movie Pearl, takes place about, I don't know, maybe about 50, 60 years before the movie X. And then Maxine takes place several years after the movie X. And both of those movies focus on 2 completely different characters. And those 2 characters, they both come together in this movie X, and in a specific way. So it's like 2 separate timelines are colliding right here in the middle. And it's like, which time, it's a not a confusing mess, I will say, but it is kind of confusing when you watch them. And then if you watch them in the order of X, Pearl, Maxine, it will get pretty confusing for you because you're like, okay, this is the same exact actress playing in all 3 of these films, and she's playing 2 completely different characters. How does this fit in? Is it like a family kind of thing, like a family timeline or something? Like, no, they're not really related. It's just 2 different characters, and there's 2 separate things happening at 2 different times and 2 different timelines or 3 different timelines. But trust me, it's a confusing mess. So the film stars a very young Jenna Ortega. Yes, Jenna Ortega somewhat gets nude in this movie. If you want to see Jenna Ortega close to being naked, this is probably as close as you're going to get for right now. And mind you, right now, Jenna Ortega is 22 years old. This movie released 2 years ago, so she was 20 when it was released. And I imagine when this film was in production, she more likely was 18 or 19 years old when this film was in production. So, yeah, you're going to see a very, very young, barely, well, I don't want to say barely 18, but yeah, very, very young Jenna Ortega getting nude in a movie like this, with stars like Martin Henderson, who's 49 years old. Mia Goth is 30 years old. Let me see. Brittany Snow starts in this. She's 38. She's my age. Then you got Owen Campbell. He was born in 94, so yeah, he's about 30. So she was probably, I want to say, the youngest. She was the youngest actress on the set for this movie. And Jenna Ortega, her filmography goes back to, 2013. Her first minor role was in Iron Man 3, and then she was the character Annie in Insidious Chapter 2. Mind you, she was only like, 11 or 12? No, she had to have been like, I don't know, 10 years old back then, something like that. But yeah, she was on a few TV shows as a little child, a teenager, and all. But she she goes all out in this movie. There is a sex scene that is shown, and it's filmed in the movie. And she is in that sex scene. So this film, it's set in 1979, and it follows a cast and crew who gather to make a pornographic film on an elderly couple's rural Texas property, but find themselves threatened by the homicidal couple. Yes, that is the plot to this movie. This team, this group, they want to film a porno, a late 70s style porno, early 80s style porno, and they decide, okay, they're going to pay this couple in Texas to use their farmhouse, their part of their property, so they can film a pornographic movie. But then things all go south. Now, this film was produced by and distributed by A24 Films. A24, they do have some pretty good movies under their belt, I will say. Like, looking at their library, like, their highest grossing films in North America are movies like Everything Everywhere and All at Once, Civil War, Uncut Gems, which stars Adam Sandler. You got movies like Talk to Me. Oh God, I think I did a episode of Talk to Me. I did not care for that movie. Hereditary. Yeah, you know what? Y'all can take that back. I'll take that back. Hereditary was trash. Well, it was trash to me. I did not care for that movie. Midsummer, yeah, that explains a lot. Ex Machina from 2015, yeah, I do take that back. Like, now, a lot of people, oh God, yeah, The Witch, oh my God, that was another bad one. Oh, that was like folk horror. Now, let me get into this. Okay, A24. If you're into some artsy style movies, especially when it comes to horror, very artsy, if that's your thing, if that's the kind of horror that kind of disturbs you and you love it, then A24 is for you. Somebody like me, I've watched some of those films, and for whatever reason, I can't get into them. It does not resonate with me with movies like The Witch or Midsummer. Midsummer, it's a disturbing film, yes. And for me, I think it was like I think it was close to 3 hours. I think it was like 2.5 or 3 hours. It was a long, long watching this film, and it just, to me, it dragged out. And I just don't have that attention. I have a good attention span when it comes to movies, especially if they're very slow. But these movies, they tend to be slow, like incredibly slow paced. And they do get a subtle point out there to disturb the audience in a way. But somebody like me, I call it trash because it's not for me. It's just not for me. Like a movie like, okay, folk horror movies like The Witch. Movies like that could get like a 95% rating. And I still wouldn't like it. But that is me. You know, those kind of movies, you would have to make your own opinion about them if you want to check those out. But yeah, A24 films, they do got a decent to good library of films, you know, in their category, and you know, this movie is one of them. This one, it doesn't really drag out, but there are a lot of scenes in there that will probably get you scratching your head or maybe even disturb you a little bit. Now, A24 Films, they announced this movie in November of 2020, and the principal photography occurred in February and March of 2021. Mia Goth, she underwent extensive prosthetic makeup for the actress, for the character Pearl, who is the old lady in this film. So Mia Goth, she plays 2 roles in this film, I believe. Yeah, she plays 2 roles. Like I said, all 3 of these movies star Mia Goth, and she plays 2 different women, Maxine Minks and Pearl. Maxine Minks is the young woman in this film. Pearl is the older lady. So you have this 30-year-old actress. She's playing 2 separate roles in this film at once. Now, this is not the first time it's happened. I don't know if it's the first time for a female actress to do it, but there's been so many movies out there where one person does multiple roles. Has anybody ever seen an Eddie Murphy movie? Eddie Murphy, he is probably like he's got to be like the biggest inspiration for something like this, you know? Like, I don't think he was the first one to do it, but he was one of many that would do it. And so many movies, like Coming to America, what was that movie? Norbit, The Nutty Professor. So many movies that Eddie Murphy starred in. He played like 2 or 3 or 4, you know, different characters. He even played a white fucking character in Coming to America. I shit you not. The old white guy in the barbershop. Yes, that was Eddie Murphy in costume. That's just fucking hilarious. But yeah, for a movie like X, you know, like you got a young female actress. I know it had to have been hell for her, but you know, once you're in that business, once you're in the industry, and you want to do a film where you're playing multiple roles, yeah, it's going to be extensive work. So yeah, she underwent extensive prosthetic makeup for the character Pearl, and special effects were employed to depict violent scenes in the film, characterized as a contemporary take on Psycho Biddy. What is Psycho Biddy? I never heard of Psycho Biddy. Okay, so Psycho Biddy is a film genre which combines elements of horror, thriller, and women's film genres. Okay, so I think even though this is considered a slasher film, I think that does fit it pretty well because it is considered a horror thriller in a sense, but it's a slasher also, and plus the most of the cast is well, there are some male characters in the film, but yeah, I guess it does take on that. Um, this movie draws inspiration from horror, exploitation, and pornographic films. That's interesting. And emphasizes the interplay between beauty, aging, and self-worth. X had a world premiere at South by Southwest. Isn't that an airport? I think. I don't think. I don't know. For some reason, South by Southwest, I thought it was like an airline or something like that. But nah, I'm completely mistaken. I'm mistaken by that. So premiered March of 2022 and was theatrically released in the U.S. 5 days later by A24. This movie received generally positive reviews from critics. And it's also the first installment in the X film series, followed by the prequel Pearl and its sequel Maxine. Now, like I said, this movie, it takes place in 79. And there is a timeline to it. So it opens up as I'm reading it for a little bit. It says in 1979, police arrive on a lonely farm in rural Texas and find numerous dead bodies wrapped in bags. They then enter the farmhouse and find something shocking in the basement. And then it cuts to 24 hours earlier. You got the aspiring adult film star Maxine, who is on a trip to shoot a pornographic film with her boyfriend Wayne, fellow burlesque dancer Bobby Lynn, Marine Corps veteran Jackson, director RJ, and RJ's quiet girlfriend Lorraine. And I think that is played by Jenna Ortega. Yeah, Lorraine Day is played by Jenna Ortega, who's pretty quiet in the film. So, the group arrives at a farmhouse owned by Howard and Pearl, an elderly couple who have a guest house that they rented out for the filming. Howard disapproves of the group, but Wayne excuses this due to not informing Howard of their intentions. So the couple, Howard, he rented it out, but he didn't know he was renting it out for a pornographic film. But the Wayne, who is the producer of the film, he excuses it due to not informing him of their intentions. So they didn't tell Howard that they were going to film a pornographic film. So the movie goes on and on. You do see scenes of them filming different scenes for this movie. There is some sex scenes. You do, hear a lot of moaning. You do see a lot of this. You see a lot of that, within the movie. Now, as nightfall takes place, and you got this old woman, Pearl, who takes notice to this group out there. And mind you, Pearl, she tends to pass herself off as a lonely, horny old woman who's just looking for someone to love and have affection for her and that kind of thing. But she also has a lust for blood too, basically. So there's a lot of things that take place during the day and during the night when everybody's going to sleep, and Pearl is still wide awake. Howard, later on is involved with it, but at first doesn't act like he is or doesn't know what's going on or what Pearl's intentions are. But let's just say Pearl goes on a bloodthirsty havoc, and one by one she starts killing off each person in that group. And it's almost kind of in horrific ways. So there is some graphic violence in this movie. And I'm not going to spoil a whole lot more for you guys, but let's just say it's a night of terror for this group of filmmakers, and it's all this couple, this mainly Pearl. She has a big bloodlust. She's very horny for some of the girl actresses. Some of the actresses in there. Not much of the men though, but she does take a liking to killing them though. So it's an interesting take on it. You have this old woman who looks like she can't move around much anymore. She can't do a whole lot, but she does. She does make her moves around the farmyard. Same thing with her husband Howard. Um, but now this is where, okay, if I can see, I'm trying to look at the ending without spoiling any of the plot for you guys. So Maxine does end up making off out of the out of the farm. So there's a scene with Pearl and Maxine where they kind of face off with each other inside the farmhouse. And something happens, and Maxine is driving away in a truck. And there is revealed that Maxine is the daughter of a televangelist, frequently heard throughout the film. Okay, so I didn't quite catch on to that, I think, when I watched the movie. But there's a televangelist that is heard on TV and seen on TV throughout the movie. I do remember that a little bit, but I didn't quite catch on to the fact that, Maxine is the daughter of the televangelist. And then after all this massacre happens, the police show up, they discover RJ's camera, and the sheriff speculates that it contains footage of one goddamn fucked up horror picture. So this movie, it's something that you really, if you're interested in it, you would have to really sit down and watch, because there is just so much that's going on. This is not just your typical slasher film where something happens and then there's a body count, but the story it's not a convoluted mess. And it's just something that's kind of interesting. This is just your typical slasher. It's just another typical American slasher, and I don't think I've ever seen another slasher horror out there that kind of goes the boundaries of this. But I mean, there are slashers out there that especially uses a lot of sexual content. Take a look at American Psycho with Christian Bale. He's I forgot what his role was. He was like a lawyer or something. I forgot what it was. He is, in his mind, he's dating all these hookers on the street. He picks up some young, beautiful woman, takes her to his apartment. He wines and dines her and woos her and shit like that. They have sex, and then he kills her. He does the same thing with men. He invites some men up to his apartment and kills them in horrific ways. There's even a scene where he's one of the hookers or something he takes to the apartment, and she wakes up and she finds all the dead bodies in his apartment. And he's running through the halls of this apartment building, ass naked, chasing her down with a chainsaw. I mean, that movie right there, a lot of people they see it as a brilliant masterpiece, and then it ends with, did all that just really happen, or did he imagine all that in his head? It questions the viewer, with that kind of movie, and that's almost kind of like how this is. It's a bizarre slasher movie. That's basically all X is. It's very bizarre, and what makes it more bizarre is there is more to the story for both of these characters that follows up in the prequel and the sequel. Like I said, Pearl is the prequel to X, which follows the character Pearl in her younger years, and Maxine is a sequel to X, which follows Maxine at least, I want to say, close to 10 years, 5 to 10 years after the events of X, as she's moving on with her life, but then something horrific happens. Now, all three of these films, all three of them are considered slasher films. even though this one, X, is a little bit more darker in tone with its theme, the movie Pearl is a little bit more lightened in tone. In fact, it's almost like maybe like I don't want to say like a romantic horror film in a sense, but there's a lot of it's like night and day. Let's just say X is night and Pearl is day, and then you got Maxine, which is a little bit of both, but it's a little bit more darker in tone. It really is a little bit more darker in tone, with the plot of it. Nate Roscoe from Fangoria wrote an essay on X, basically saying that X exemplifies a modern take on the psycho-biddy horror subgenre in which aging or elderly women portray grotesque, violent characters. Roscoe also notes that the film's primary theme revolves around aging, youth, and longing over the past, snatching its inspiration from the shadiest recesses of art and exploitation. It is the relationship between beauty, aging, and self-worth that creeps most conspicuously through the architecture of the movie X. He also notes that the film presents its antagonist, the murderous Pearl, in a manner that is sympathetic, writing that at moments one can't help but feel crushingly sorry for the tragic figure. And that is a tone that is very output in this film with the character Pearl. You know, it is a true statement to her output. You know, one who can't help but feel crushingly sorry for the tragic figure. But yet she continues her reign of terror on the set. Critics also noted that the influences of several other films on X, with multiple commentators observing homages to 1974's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Other films cited by critics having an influence on X include movies like Psycho, Easy Rider, Hardcore, The Shining, Alligator. I don't see anything about. I don't even. And Boogie Nights. Remember the movie Boogie Nights with Mark Wahlberg? Yeah, the very pornographic period drama film. Yeah, remember that? Even Richard Roper wrote that X contains echoes of such pornographic films as Blue Movie and Debbie Does Dallas. I never heard of Blue Movie, but I sure know about Debbie Does Dallas. I never seen it though, but so yeah, what was this? Blue Movie. Okay, Blue Movie is the first adult erotic film depicting explicit sex to receive wide theatrical releases. Oh, I'm pretty sure somebody had their own Pee Wee Herman back in the day. But yeah, so this movie, it was definitely in theaters. And it's on streaming now, of course. You know, you can find it, I think, on Amazon and some other streaming platforms at once. But even reading through the critical responses and all, like, I can see where people are taking more an inspiration to depicting this film as closely to, like, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. In a sense, it kind of is. In a way, like, when you watch this movie, you will get a sense of, I feel like I've seen this movie before, but it's not completely mimicking Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but it's got, as they call it, echoes of that classic movie. And even reading in the critical responses, the Atlantic's David Sims called the film a modern classic, comparing it with 2022's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which he felt failed creatively compared to X. Let me see. There's another one I saw here that was okay. So let's see. Dmitry Samarov of Chicago Reader gave the film a mostly negative review. This is where the negative reviews come in at. Writing that even the most casual horror fan won't miss it. The references that X makes to 1974's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but that, unlike Tobe Hooper's masterpiece, which has a point to make about economic desperation and cultural clash in the 70s America. West just wants to punish everyone involved in a gory way, played for laughs. I guess that's almost kind of true. Like, not only does director Ty West try to have influences in on that, but yeah, that sounds about right. Just like, oh, let's make a pornographic movie. It's a movie about these, these porn stars are making a movie and then they get killed off. But Ty West, that's probably like the first time I heard that name director wise, but I do see he did quite a few movies that I have seen. Which is, let's see, he did House of the Devil. I did see that. That one I was very tongue in cheek with. The movie The Innkeepers, that was a real fun movie to watch right there. Oh, he did VHS. Y'all ever seen the movie VHS? The original VHS. ABCs of Death. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to do a review on that. That is and The Valley of Violence. I've never seen that. And he also did X Pearl and Maxine. He was the director, writer, producer, and editor on all three of those films. Wow. Yeah. So, guys, that is the movie X, starring Mia Goth and Jenna Ortega. What'd you guys think about today's review on this movie? Did you guys see the movie X? Let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are of the movie. If you have yet to see it, maybe it's something you will definitely be interested in. And pack a few paper towels, boys, because you probably want to watch this film. Oh, God. So that ends it for today's episode of Cinemacast, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And depending on what platform you guys are watching this show on, be sure to leave that like, that subscribe, and that follow if you enjoy our content right here on TikTok, YouTube, and Twitch. Also, if you guys want to follow us anywhere, even on our social media, if you want to join us on Discord, links are all down below in description sections as you're watching. Thank you today, guys, for joining me today for today's feature of X. And until next time, we will see you right back here at the cinema.